Greetings! Welcome to the devlog for update 33 of Hot Dogs, Horseshoes, and Hand Grenades. We're going to start off as always with a quick sound check. Make sure your speakers aren't up too high. Wonderful. So what have we got for you this week? Well, we have a refresh of the first scene that was made for H3, along with something very special, as it is the to the day 1 year anniversary of me getting a Vive, or Vive as I incorrectly pronounced it, for that first week. We have a special toy that I had actually made during the first couple weeks of messing around, but had never implemented into the full game due to performance issues. Well, I've brought it back. We have the Graviton Beamer, as though one had assembled it in the garage. Nice car battery here, little breakout box, some big honking capacitors, and this is the perfect toy for playing around with the new plinths and finally some exploding barrels. So let's go ahead and turn this on. You got to flip these three switches. There's a capacitor going on. There's our grav locus. And so the way this works is we grab this 4 lever here and pull it back or push it forward. And that's basically our area that's going to suck things up. And we can, let's go ahead and pick up something over here. So this can hold up to 5 physics active objects at once. So we can say pick this up by pulling the trigger. And then click the touchpad to fire. Whee! Goodbye, Mark 18. So let's pick up something more fun here. Let's pick up an exploding barrel. Aw. Only damaged it. Let's try for better. Perfect. So yeah, so this is just a fun toy. I have been playing with this all last night and this morning now that I have it working again. But we can do some more things here with this, which is, let's put that down. Let's turn it off for a moment here. We've got a little panel in the warehouse range that allows us to reset the targets and barrels with a click here. You'll notice this is one of the point laser style panels, which I'm slowly switching over to. The item spawner isn't set up this way yet, but it is going to be soon. But all of the new sort of generic panels function the same way as the wrist menu here. But as you can see, we also have this extra option here to spawn some slicers into here. So let me get myself a backup gun just in case. Oh, look at that! We've got something else special here. When you are in the item spawner and you open up a specific firearm, there is now a control infographic. The way these are laid out is we have the sort of specific button presses on the left here, and then a sort of abstracted instruction set for how to operate this class of firearm. So hopefully that should help those of you who are still learning the game out, as well as demoing it for friends. So let's go ahead and harness that. Now we're ready for some slicers. Turn this back on. Oh dear, we got one over here. Over here. Oh no! Oh dear. Run! I messed up my initial grab. Oh, they are still coming. Oh dear! Oh, those two are jammed together. Sweet! Oh dear. That one's gone. Oh, number 3's still coming. There we go. And done. So yeah, so I hope you have fun with this. This is the Graviton beamer here is only in the warehouse scene at the moment, and that's because it has some pretty complex interactions with physics active objects. I'm not sure if it would honestly break some stuff that is in some of the other scenes. So it's going to start in here, and once I've had some more time to test it in the other scenes, I might add it to the item spawner. That is, if it can even fit on the plinth here. So yeah. So now that we have that, what else do we have? Oh yeah, just a little fun thing here. The laser sword can now finally properly, let's spawn lock that, ignite fuses. It's a little touch, but a fun one. Huh? Is that gonna explode? Oh, there it goes. It can also totally ignite things, like the barrels. Boom. Awesome. So, what next? What next? Okay, on to less explosive, but just as important things. Let's go ahead and get in an open area here. One of the big things that I worked on the past 2 weeks has been giving you some more advanced options for the locomotion modes. So let's go ahead and open up the options panel here, and we'll lock it in place. So let's see what we've got. If we go into movement mode options here, we now have this row of advanced options. So right now I'm in dash mode. So let's start with teleport. Go into our teleport advanced options. So right now when I teleport, it's obviously coming from my hand, which some people prefer, and some miss the way before I sort of did my big locomotion sort of rebuild that you could use head pointing. So we can just click that here, and now when I click down the menu button, the teleport ray basically comes from as though it were over my right shoulder. So we can just pop around like so, and the direction we are pointing with our controller is irrelevant. So cool. And that is available independently as an option, both for teleport, for dash, and for slide. Sliding locomotion, and that's where you sort of slide to a point, now has 5 different speeds. I believe it defaults to standard, but if you prefer this mode, having a sort of gradual movement to a target, but not with the touchpad or arm swinger, there's now some speed fidelity for it. And then the most complex one, which is our touchpad locomotion mode. So let's make sure we're in it. Cool. And so cool. So we've got 3 sets of options here. The first one is called axial orientation. And what this basically means is how is what is forward and back, left and right determined relative to the hand. With H3 standard, forward is basically exactly where you see this beam coming out. So if you were pointing with a gun like that, that is absolute forward. That would be up, that would be down, etc. This option, onward, instead has essentially forward being down the line of the controller. I know some folk prefer that. I don't like it a ton because basically by using that axial option, the moment you're aiming higher than about there, clicking up on the touchpad actually makes you move backwards. But as I said, some prefer it. There's leveled hand, which basically tries to project the forward direction a little bit more homogeneously onto 2 axes. And what this basically means is if I'm moving forward and back, the exact rotation of my controller won't have any effect on that speed until I start actually going, say, backwards. So hopefully that makes sense. And then leveled head, same sort of concept here. Sort of forward, back, left, and right is head local. Which direction the controller is pointing is completely irrelevant. It's purely based on that, which I know some folk find more natural. I actually kind of prefer this out of all of them. Then we've got movement occurs when. So by default, it's on touch, meaning that when we touch the touchpad, we start moving. This would also mean that on, if you're using the touch controllers, just pushing the joystick without clicking it in will move you. We also have on-click hold, which basically touching the touchpad when it's in this mode does nothing. You actually have to click to move. Granted, this does mean that you only have 2 fidelities of movement in this mode, which is walk speed and double-clicking to sprint momentarily. So that's how that functions. And then the last one, and this is mainly geared towards front-facing users, and I definitely suggest having on-click hold enabled for this mode, which is basically how is the lateral axis of the touchpad utilized. By default, it's strafe, i.e., moving left and right, like so, but we can change it to lateral is snap turn and actually use it to snap rotate 45 degrees. Like so. So hopefully that should help you out. And even if you're not, using front-facing cameras, but just are doing something mixed reality related where you want the sort of rotation of the environment to be different, you can always jump into lateral snap turn mode, align yourself like so, and then just go back into lateral strafe, and everything should behave normally. So yeah, so hopefully these various options will help you out. If there's anything that I've missed, you feel in terms of sort of really core locomotion options, please let me know. Cool, and turn that back to hands. Delightful. I think, is that everything in this scene? I believe so. Cool. So we're going to jump out of the scene and jump into another. So we are in a brand new scene. What's this? The main menu scene has finally gotten a little bit of a facelift. So we've got an options panel right visible and then sort of scaled up for us to use right when jumping in. Changelog still here. And we've got some Quickstart tips that we can totally check out for basic controls. So once again, this is primarily geared towards new users, but if you're demoing the game to new folk, there is now finally a little bit of explanation as to what to do, how to move around, and such. And then when we jump down here, we have a new form of level select. We basically point at what we want, like so. We get a description here, and then we can load the scene there. And obviously this sort of wall of tiles will continue to grow and be filled out as the game continues to expand. Whee! Excellent. Cool. And then the, let's see here. Oh, and the last thing, I don't think I need to actually jump into the scene, so I'll just tell you guys. If you enjoyed the arcade proto, but were always like, man, I really wish there was more than like 4 guns you could use in there. Basically, I added the item spawner into that, and there's a global toggle just in that scene for whether or not you want to have infinite ammo or not. So the gold mags are now sort of redundant in that scene. They've been removed, so you can totally play sort of reload free. So if you just want to grab an SMG or something like that and just spam away at targets without having to worry about reloading, that is now the scene for you. So anyway, let's jump out of VR and talk about what's next.
Yo! So we're back out of VR, and let's go ahead and finish up our changelog first. Beyond the stuff that I already covered, firearm gas out has been modified. Basically the way it worked is if the sort of breach was still closed, gas out would sort of be paused indefinitely, which obviously wouldn't be the case. Things would sort of diffuse over time, so that now occurs at a super reduced rate. Thanks, Tony S., for the suggestion. Some stuff involving the bullseye target in the warehouse range where they just sort of would fall when you shoot them, that was finally fixed. Tweaked some things involving grenade shrapnel damage. As you might have seen there, Slicer's navigation computer has been updated. I realized as I was testing him out in the warehouse range, I experienced a behavior that would sometimes occur in the arena scene, occurring all the time, which is, some of you might have seen it, where he would just, instead of deciding to fly, just grind along the ground like an idiot, and then all of a sudden be like, oh yeah, I'm supposed to be flying, and then fly again. That was because of a silly elevation calculation bug. So that's been fixed, and along the way I sort of made him just navigate a bit smarter than before. In terms of other fixes, some goofy stuff involving the wrist menu was fixed. The spooky 45 range should now load. That was like a shader error that needed to be fixed. Grab point fling inertia while using arm swinger locomotion should work now. It was, once again, my fault when I had sort of wrote that in. It was just for the touchpad locomotion. I wasn't setting that correctly for arm swinger, as it has its own set of variables. And speaking of arm swinger, I fixed the way that sort of direction and inertia is computed, so it should be way, way smoother now, almost no matter how you're holding your hands. Some collision stuff on the breaching scene should be fixed. I think I have fixed the crash involving the SW686 revolver, especially loading it, as well as some assorted stuff involving palming the revolver ammo. If it's still busted or acts screwy, please let me know, but I think I have that fixed now. It was a really rare and strange crash. Yeah, let's see here. Handgun magazine should be more difficult to accidentally drop out when you're trying to actuate the slide release. Yeah, and the 8-gauge shotgun shell now actually fires proper bullets instead of the very, very old bullets that that first existed in H3 that were not causing damage correctly to a few things. So yeah, and a couple other sort of minor miscellanea. So beyond that, what's going on? Well, as you can see this week, I would say about 70% rebuilt the warehouse range. I still used the base geo, but everything was re-UV'd to get some nicer lighting in there. The ground was replaced. I was still using a Unity terrain, which any of you using Unity for VR stuff, just don't use the built-in terrain. It is the most preposterous performance hit, even for a small patch. It's not worth it. So that's been replaced. So that whole scene, especially any of you who noticed you were like hitting reprojection easily in the warehouse scene, that should be fixed because the terrain's been removed, the lighting's been changed. The whole scene should run faster. The only time that it might give users with a weaker system a bit of a hiccup is if you spawn 6 slicers at once. They are very performance heavy between the sort of fly-by-wire physics calculation to their particle effects, to all the separate damageable pieces. There's just no way to make him cheap without making him less damageable in a nuanced way. So just be aware of that. If you spawn 6 of them at once, it may chug a bit if you're looking at all 6 at once. Also, just be aware with the Graviton beamer, I did everything I could to make it be performance efficient, but every now and again you may suffer a stutter if you're, say, grabbing a slicer with it and whacking another slicer with it. It's such a complex physics situation, especially if the beamer is actually colliding with one of the slicers as it does that it can just hiccup, and there's not much I can do about it. So it was between putting it out like this where it can occasionally hiccup or not putting it out at all, despite spending several days optimizing everything about it. That was like must have been like the 4th or 5th type of object that I built for H3, and man, I shuddered when I opened up the code for that. So it's been rewritten, but is such a blast to play with. And if you have any other ideas for like fun stuff that should be added to the warehouse range to fling about and destroy with the Graviton beamer, do let me know. I definitely want to get a shatterable toilet in there, just to complete the Half-Life 2 references and such. So yeah, but then in terms of one of the reasons that I did the warehouse scene, aside from the fact that it really needed the facelift, is that as I continue to work on sort of future updates, what I'm going to try, no guarantees, but I'm going to try to do in addition to whatever I'm doing for that update is take at least one of the old scenes that is in the game that hasn't gotten touched in months and months and months, and give it a bit of a facelift, sort of iterating it towards some sort of notion of finally being done. Some scenes will just get a sort of minor facelift and some simple additions, like the indoor range will get a little bit of extra decoration, some different paper targets, that sort of thing. Whereas scenes like the modular range are undergoing a far longer sort of development period because they're being rebuilt and reconceptualized entirely. So, but you should definitely expect over the coming months to see a bunch of the game's oldest scenes given some love, given some extra things to play with, and along that lines, probably some extra items thrown into the item spawner for them. Like when I actually redo the Arizona range, things like bottles and the other targets to shoot at will finally go into the item spawner and be spawn lockable, so you can set up your own sort of, target shooting setup to your heart's content. So yeah, well, that's about it for now. Just the next update is going to be a little light, as next week is GDC, so I'm going to be there all week and probably a bit exhausted for a couple days afterwards. But I'm going to see if I can get another new toy in for the next update. Anyway, so yeah, well, I'm gonna stop rambling and gonna go ahead and finish bug testing this update. I'm sure there's at least one thing that I have missed. I hope you enjoy it. I hope you have some delirious fun with the Graviton beamer. I've been playing with it nonstop for the past 2 days instead of getting work done. So I hope you enjoy it as much as I have. Peace.